I have two questions for you. Have you ever heard the term ADHD? Can you please raise your hand if you did? Almost everybody? That's fantastic. And how many of you could explain what ADHD is and what are the symptoms of it? Can you please raise your hand? A couple. Okay. So almost everybody heard about it, yet nobody knows what it means. This situation is a huge obstacle in mental health, diversity, and inclusion progress. This lack of understanding is fueling stigma about mental health, which is in turn alienating millions of people around the world. I know this firsthand as I have ADHD. I am also on the spectrum, and I was diagnosed with conditions like chronic depression, anxiety, dissociations, and more. But I wasn't diagnosed with any of them till later in my life. In fact, for the vast majority of it, I was clueless about what was going on inside my own skull. And just before I went to elementary school, I could read, write, talk, both in Polish and basic English. I knew how to use math, and I had quite impressive knowledge about space and the animal world. I wasn't a genius, I was just allowed to read and learn whatever I wanted. But then I went actually to elementary school, and that changed. And while at first teachers were very impressed with my progress, with time they started to be more and more worried. They didn't like style of my handwriting, or they claimed that I seemed bored during classes. I stopped being a golden child anymore, and I became talented but lazy. The thing is, I never considered myself lazy. I really tried as hard as I could, maybe even harder than anybody else I knew. But even if I would spend my whole weekend studying, doing my homeworks, preparing for class, packing my backpack, setting alarm clocks, following Monday I would be late for school, forgetting about homework, daydreaming during lessons, and lacking self-discipline. My grades were dropping year after year, so year after year, punishments were getting more severe. My teachers pushed me further and harder, while my mother decided that the best way to motivate me will be through physical force. I started to skip school, but that didn't help, and the punishments were getting more and more worse. All because, according to their standard, I was still talented but lazy. And when I was 11, I started to self-harm myself, and suicidal thoughts followed soon after. And even I know, like, some of those punishments were there to help me to be motivated, I cannot really imagine worse punishment to convince an 11-year-old that the world he barely experienced and he barely knew would be better without him. This talented but lazy tag followed me through my whole education system, even in colleges, plural, as I went through three different ones, but never actually stayed in any of them for longer than a couple of months. I did sign up for the fourth one, but never even went to one class. I had this idea in my head that I will surely be motivated to do things when I'll be paid to do those things. So I started to work in a local store as a salesman, but after a while I was late to work, forgetting about responsibilities, daydreaming during work hours, and lacking self-discipline. I changed my jobs a couple of times. I even moved to a different city. And when I was 23, I still felt like I'm talented but lazy. And I managed to finally go to a doctor, and I told her how every single task I do seemed like an impossible mountain to climb, and it was everything from brushing my teeth to doing my taxes to be at work on time. I also told her, like, my friends are starting their families, building their houses, and finishing colleges. I was stuck in this endless loop of failed new chances. I also told her that I consider myself a coward because I'm too afraid of physical pain to end my own life. And that's why when I was diagnosed with ADHD, I started my therapy, I started being on meds. But what I started was also how to relearn how to really use my brain. And just after a year of starting this process, I was able to organize my head just enough to start my job as a community manager in one of the biggest agencies in Poland. And I was great at this, writing, creating, building ideas. But no matter how good I was, according to my boss, I was late for work, forgetting about responsibilities, daydreaming during meetings, and lacking organization skills. And I could tell everybody about my ADHD issues, but it's in my head, so technically it is my problem. I was so scared of being branded as mentally ill that I even stopped my therapy and stopped taking my meds. You know what didn't stop? self-harming incidents, and suicidal thoughts. Every time those comments would start appear, I would just, change jobs. In the next 4 years, I worked in 4 different companies, and for my final job, my maybe not final, but last job, I was asked to move abroad to Amsterdam, and I gladly did that because another fresh start. This time, it will be different, right? But after a year, I was late for work, forgetting about responsibilities, daydreaming during meetings, and lacking organization skills. And while I was looking for a new job, I actually had a meeting in the company about diversity and inclusion. And during one of those meetings, the question was asked, when was the last time you felt included? And at that moment, I felt like I always felt included. I'm a white, cisgender, Catholic on paper, heterosexual man from Europe. Why I wouldn't feel included? But when I was looking for a new job, because I was trying to hide something that is how my brain works and I cannot really impact, I started to feel maybe a bit differently about this question. Before I was diagnosed, I was trying to fit the mold I was told I needed to fit, and after my diagnosis, I tried to fit into the mold I thought I need to fit. And because I really like this job, I decided to do things a bit differently. So what I did first is I wanted to restart my therapy and my meds. And I almost had a panic attack when I went to my GP. When I actually went to the office and saw her, I lied. I lied that I came in for a regular checkup. And when I got home, my brain was telling me that I should be proud of myself because I tricked them all. But in reality, the only person who was tricking was myself. So the next day, I went there again, and this time with all of my strength, I wept. And let nobody ever tell you that asking for help is a weakness. It takes so much strength to actually do it. If you ever went through this, I am so proud of you. And if you're still trying to gather your strength to do so, I believe in you and you're already so much stronger than you can ever think. But my next step wasn't that much easier neither. I booked 1 hour long lunch with my manager. And even though my whole body and mind, yet again, were trying to stop me from talking about my mental health state, somehow I managed to splurt it out. And Carmen, after my half an hour long monologue, just looked at me and said that I have her full support in starting mental health, diversity and inclusion conversation in the company. So I started to talk about autism and ADHD in the office, first with my closest colleagues, then with teams I work close with, and then with agencies. And soon I was standing on the boards of Amsterdam Theater in front of over 500 of my colleagues, telling them what is ADHD and how it impacts my daily life. And back then, I asked them the same 2 questions asked you at the beginning, and the results were the same. Everybody heard about it, nobody knew what it means. So I started pushing even more. On top of the emails and meetings I had, I even started a mental health employee resource group in Amsterdam. In a year since I started this process, I got even more responsibilities at Netflix and became a marketing lead for Central and Eastern Europe. I led campaigns for titles like Black Mirror, The Witcher, Stranger Things, and more in multiple CE markets while managing dozens of people at the same time. And this feedback, it never came back. It doesn't mean that I was never late for meetings anymore. None of those behaviors changed. What changed is that people now knew that I'm not really late for a meeting because I don't value their time, or that I forgot to send this document I promised to send them because I was slacking. I just probably lost track of time. And I'm not really daydreaming during meetings, I'm just brainstorming with myself to find solutions to problems we are currently facing. In short, instead of trying to make me work as anybody else would, we build an environment where I can use my strengths more often, both with benefits to my company and to me. I was more creative, more energetic, and more confident, just because I could finally stop pretending to be somebody I'm not. And this March, I celebrated 2 years since my last self-harming incident. I don't have suicidal thoughts anymore. And I definitely don't consider myself a coward. And last year, I quit my job at Netflix, but not to protect my secret ADHD identity this time, but to really understand what ADHD means to me. And I will give you a short recap of 5 main things. First, there is no such a thing as a normal brain, right? Each and every brain is unique, both to genetics, which is nature, and environment, nurture. That means that all of us here will experience the same reality differently. Second, ADHD is real, and you probably are born with it, and it's not an illness. Just like autism and many more, ADHD is a different brain development. which means that I will experience this reality completely different than you. If you don't believe that ADHD exists, or you think that ADHD is just bad parenting, you're no different to me than a flat earther on an anti-vaxxer. Number 3 is dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that is responsible for motivational salience. It will motivate you to do your tasks, but also help you plan your work, and on the end of it, it will reward you for your job done. It will work with everything from brushing your teeth, to doing your taxes, to being in work on time. The bigger the task, the more dopamine you will get. Easy, right? Well, not easy for me, as ADHD brains will have issues with absorbing this dopamine. But the fact that I don't absorb this dopamine enough doesn't mean my brain doesn't crave it. So from one side, I will rarely feel motivation to do anything, and from the other side, my brain will jump from one thing to another in search of satisfaction that almost never arrives. If you want to imagine how it is, just imagine you're sitting in a room with hundreds of TVs all around you. All of them are playing different channels, all of them are on max volume, and now try to focus on one of them. This is your brain trying to tell you that you should drink more water. On top of that, because my brain jumps around all the time, my brain is never properly trained to retain information. I need to add everything I need to do to my to-do list. I even have a to-do tattoo on my arm, just to remember that everything I need to do, I need to add to my to-do list to not forget to actually do them. It's also made with Albert Einstein handwriting, as till this day we debate if he was Asperger or ADHD, and he was probably both, just like me. Number 4 is hyperfocus, which is like an ADHD superpower. So because my brain jumps around all the time because it lacks dopamine, sometimes it will find something that could be a book, a TV show, a person, or a project at work that will be just enough in my scope of interest that will actually provide with this tiny bit of it. And then total shutdown. Nothing else exists. I had days when for 18 hours straight I didn't eat, didn't drink, didn't even go to a toilet. Because in this moment, all of those TVs are still playing different channels, but all of them are showing me everything I have ever learned about this specific subject. But this time, none of them is telling me that I should drink more water. And number 5 is that I didn't really talk about this in my office to get special treatment as some people talk. Some people actually used Google and knew that people with ADHD are more creative, more courageous, and better at problem solving than people without ADHD. And because brain with ADHD will produce more theta waves, theta waves are responsible for managing stress. People with ADHD will be better at managing crises in companies than their non-ADHD colleagues. And that's just tip of an iceberg. You don't need to take word for it, just go home and Google it. Most stories of you hearing about ADHD will be success stories. People like Michael Phelps, Justin Timberlake, will.i.am, Lisa Ling. And you may even think, like, if all of those people made it, everybody can. But ADHD is also a story of those who never make it. It's a story about suffering, pain, and trauma. It's a story about blood, sweat, and tears. Literally. There are estimates that up to 7% of the global population will be people with ADHD. That's 500 million people. If there would be an ADHD country, it would be the 3rd most populated one just after India and China. Statistically speaking, for every 100 people you know, 7 of them will struggle with ADHD. And struggle is a crucial word here, as self-harming incidents are over 8 times more often in kids, teens, and adults with ADHD. Scared of social stigma, people with ADHD will very often self-medicate to calm their minds. And ADHDers are up to 10 times more often addicted to alcohol and heavy drugs than general population. And to get to the self-medication state, people with ADHD will very often break the law. According to multiple researchers all around the world, we calculate that up to 24% of any given prison population will be people with ADHD. Very often undiagnosed or misdiagnosed. When it's easier and safer for you to break the law to feel a bit better, then you know the stigmatization and alienation of a whole chunk of a population is actually working. Almost 15% of all teens and adults with ADHD will try to commit suicide. And because ADHD testing and categorization are designed for boys and men, almost 25% of all women, undiagnosed or misdiagnosed, will have at least one suicide attempt during their lives. 35% of all suicides in the children of age group 12 to 15 and 60% of all suicides in the kids below 12 are connected to ADHD symptoms. Because all of this, even without any underlying medical or physical conditions, life expectancy of a person of ADHD can be up to 25 years shorter than compared to a person without it. And when I was in high school, I hated reading. And I hated learning, basically. But during one of the literal classes, our teacher gave us a homework to write a short epigram. So I went home and I worked on it through my whole weekend. And then next week, I got an A for an effort. The same week, I started to read poetry, and quite soon I was writing my own. And later, reading longer books. My whole career was based on writing ideas, scripts, and presentations and speeches. And today, I'm not only reading 2 books per month, I'm also writing my first movie script. And I cannot speak for everybody who has ADHD, but I can speak for myself. And what I know is that I'm not here because my teachers told me that I will end up as a junkie if I don't try harder, which they did. And it's not because of the doctors that told me that ADHD doesn't exist, because they did. It's also not because my mother, who believed in harsh punishments, which she did. And it's also not because some of my colleagues and friends rolled their eyes and told me that I'm making excuses when I try to talk to them about my struggles. I'm not here because I was told multiple times that I'm talented but lazy. I'm here because my sister Camila told me multiple times that I am the smartest person she ever met. I'm here because my grandfather told me that bravery is not being afraid. It's being afraid and doing things anyway. I'm here because my mother occasionally told me that I have limitless potential. I'm here because some of my colleagues were actually supportive when I tried to talk to them. And I'm here because my girlfriend tells me it's all right when I get lost in my head and I just ask her to repeat what she just said. I am here because my teacher gave me a good grade for trying. I am here because I was told multiple times, I love you for trying so hard. And you may have no idea how a sentence like this can change somebody's life, or even save it. I know that very well, that's why I'm here. Not only because I heard it from time to time, but to tell it to everybody who is struggling, and to everybody who is lost, and to everybody who's afraid that tomorrow they may not have enough strength to carry on. I love you for trying so hard. But it's... Thank you. But it's not the end of my journey of exploring what ADHD is, and it shouldn't be yours. Please don't believe in your head that just being here and listening to me, you already did enough. And if you already think what you can do next, I can tell you right now. Take your phone and call somebody that you know they're struggling. It can be your colleague, your friend, your partner, or your child, and tell them that you love them for trying so hard. And then go home, and instead of Googling my name, Google what is autism. Google how a bipolar brain is working. Google how can I be an ally to my friend with depression. And then think about, do people like me really struggle with ADHD symptoms? Or do we struggle with how society treats us in the end? And I know this is going to be a long and very bumpy road to relearn how you approach people, to now approach them with curiosity, not judgment. But I'm sure that once you start this long road, one day you will hear back, I love you for trying so hard. And I would love you if you would just try to do that. Thank you.